Today's battle is finance versus operations. It's the corporate world's Jake Paul versus everyone else.
Absolutely. So what do you get normally? This should be simple. So why isn't it?
We always see the battle where finance thinks they're right, but the ops guys and gals turn around and think that they're right. And we always sit back sometimes as neutrals when you're not in one of those teams and think, well, who is actually right? And that's the question that we're asking today. You're talking about
that's a good point. I know I've done a review where
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Account Ads, the podcast for the finance and accounting leaders, strategizers, thinkers, and the doers. Ash, we've got a age-old question today. It's the age-old battle. We've seen Jake Paul fight everyone. Today's battle is finance versus operations. It's the corporate world's Jake Paul versus everyone else.
Absolutely. So what do you get normally? This should be simple. So why isn't it?
We always see the battle where finance thinks they're right, but the ops guys and gals turn around and think that they're right. And we always sit back sometimes as neutrals when you're not in one of those teams and think, well, who is actually right? And that's the question that we're asking today. And we're trying to understand as finance professionals, as the account dads, why there's this tension and this friction between both these teams. And I think if we started off, Ash, the operations guys, the biggest frustration I've heard from them usually is that finance is slow, too reactive, not proactive enough. And finance live in their own little bubble at their own desks. They don't walk around, don't get to know the business. And as a result of that, their opinions can't be trusted except at month end. But even the numbers they present there have caveats to it.
Absolutely.
Is that the reality?
Well, operations are going to be the revenue generators, right? So what happens is we'll provide you a random set of numbers that align to my spreadsheets and my systems, and I'm going to ignore what the finance team says because, once again, you guys cannot close a timely month end. So, yeah, well, look, the idea is like everything's real time and operations. We're having to like generate things for the future. You know, accounting and finance has become pretty much a statutory number for us, right? You do it for compliance and you're trying to close off the books, but it's not relevant to us, right? Why is it relevant to the operations guys?
Well, this is the question, right? So finance will sit back. Maybe let's play devil's advocate, Ash. You can be operations, I'll be finance. So the finance view is if it's not recorded, it doesn't exist. So that's the source of truth is essentially your general ledger.
Yeah.
And so finance hold that like it's the holy grail. And the purpose of that is because that is essentially reflective of what's happening in your bank. That's reflective of the money going out, the money coming in. And yes, sometimes there's a disconnect between that and the operations world, but that's less to do with what finance are doing most of the times. Sometimes it could be, but they are holding the number that matters the most in the business in the general ledger as the gospel, so to speak. And as a result of that, they don't care about anything else. They're tunnel visioned on that, and that means that any process that aligns with that, things like month end, things like your weekly reporting, they're married to essentially the processes and the results from that. Give me the operations point of view, Ash.
Well, at the end of the day, like we've got the contracts trying to generate the revenue, trying to get the money into the business from the clients, right? So whether or not we have to change payment terms, we have to, agree additional items, or we have to, figure out how do we sign on these clients. It's not necessarily black and white how we come back and say, no, we've got a policy on 15% margin or markup. Someone's got to go, hey, look, this is what the market's suggesting. This is how we need to win this revenue. So then we can either get to more opportunities in the future or have our market presence as well. So yeah, fully get that there's a compliance element to it. And the source of truth is effectively cash and how much you're bringing into the bank. Everything else, it's sort of a gray line in my view. So how we're trying to record our revenue and future prospects, largely irrelevant to finance in my view.
Yeah. So you reckon operations is glorified because they're the ones delivering the revenue. As a result, they're closest to the business, closest to the heartbeat of the business.
For sure. Have you seen a business otherwise that doesn't do that or not?
No, I mean, I agree with different elements of that. And obviously without usually your delivery people, so the people delivering the revenue or servicing the revenue, there will be no business all together. And you do see that with a lot of small to medium businesses, they tend to be able to run without a finance team or a finance person. But I guess the larger your business goes, that's where that relationship matters. Answer me this question. Do finance care about value preservation more, which means they care more about protecting risk, they care more about ensuring accuracy, completeness, the things we learned in audit school. And ops care more about value creation at all costs. Is that where the tension and the balance is?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think the understanding of basically when that value preservation becomes obsolete, their finance function don't have a clue when that changes in front of them. Because what they're used to is, hey, we've done it like this the whole time. So understanding market dynamics sometimes gets lost a bit because of that one time, because things change in business. If we didn't jump on that AI bubble, we'd still be looking at the yellow pages as an example, right? Or Google, right? So when was the last time you did a trade and you said, oh, hey, let me pick up the yellow pages and go sift through that? So things change. We need to adapt. We need to figure out, is this revenue stream going to keep making us money, or do we need to actually change some of our strategy to get in line?
And I think that's where, like you said, that's where the tension is. And there is this sense of if both teams or both individuals, so to speak, understood the value of each other and the role they play to each other in the business, then being married in understanding of processes, understanding of kind of business life cycle, that is a better result and a better outcome for the business. But that doesn't always tend to be the case.
Well, of
Why is that,
course.
Ash?
Well, of course. So if you think about it, I think we've split finance into sort of your statutory roles. That's taking care of your month ends. And if you think about then your finance roles taking care of your commercial acumen, like your finance business partnering, this is where you can actually start bridging your gaps, right? Because yes, month end is a focus, but if you've got someone to be able to translate different problems to you and explain why certain things are important for operations and why certain things are important for finance, you've got the ultimate utopia, right? You don't have to unnecessarily go and make 50,000 spreadsheets and make that, oh, hey, I'm trying to win a new job. Let me go enter a new spreadsheet data. Oh, hey, I'm trying to figure out what's in the pipeline. Let's go enter a new spreadsheet. We can actually work together and come back and say, hey, what's important to you as operations? Oh, what's important right now is, let's say, hours, the number of contracts in the pipeline, how we're going to execute and how close we are. With finance, all they could be caring about is, actually, I just want my cash I want my cash in the bank, right? So you can come back and say, oh, well, we'll update the payment terms so it's best for both, right? You can definitely work together. It's just because you come back and say, oh, no, that's not profitable because it's a lower margin than my other contracts.
Yeah.
And then you just create this unnecessary tension. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think this is where the challenge, if I have to use an analogy, and I love using analogies, I think if we use month end as an example, finance often treat month end like they've climbed Mount Everest. And when they get there and they say, well, this is our results, and when people don't really care about it, or they tut it, or they dismiss it, then there's this sense of being super offended or being like, well, why do we do this anyway? But I think finance needs to understand that if we use the Everest analogy, month end is like getting to base camp, and they're the Sherpas, right? We're helping the business, and often it's the operations people involved there as well, get to base camp. We're carrying all their stuff to base camp. And from then, we're trying to scale and climb Mount Everest. And usually that's sometimes without finance. I mean, there's obviously finance there in the weeds trying to help them out. But we're trying to give the insights, we're trying to give essentially insight into the business for the operations guys, for the salespeople, for them to make decisions to better the business and better the outcomes for everyone, hopefully, in the business as a result of that. So I think that's where sometimes we get caught up, because we're told in finance and accounting school that our jobs are the best ever and we need to value it as the top tier in every organization, and sometimes we come with egos, don't we?
Absolutely. So have you seen that work in your practice as well, where you've actually come back and started helping out the business and just actually applying, that correlation between it? Or has it always been a tension where you just come back and say, look, mate, you do your job, I'll do my job, you stick to your lane, I'll stick to my lane. At the end of the year, we hope we both get bonuses, right?
Yeah. Well, I think, and this is probably why we have this podcast, because we enjoy that part of our roles, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we enjoy sitting at our desk and just crunching numbers without understanding what's actually happening in the business. And so we enjoy going out, understanding, talking to operations people, because more often than not, we actually don't understand their roles. We don't
Right.
understand their world. And, for me, and the same as it is for you, I just like understanding different people's worlds and how they work, what drives a good result for them in their work, what drives a bad result. And essentially, somehow that always connects back to the numbers. And so it's good for
Yeah.
us to know that. And so, yeah, I love those conversations. And that's why we try and promote through this podcast for finance professionals to always be out talking to the business.
And you've looped back into the curiosity piece, right? Like you just keep coming back to it, right? You got to be curious about the numbers. What do they mean? You can't just come back and say, hey, my general ledger shows 10 and I'm going to keep harping about commentary about 10, because whatever that is, if it's a quantity or if it's a sales figure, you've got to keep applying yourself, right? Go, hey, what was it last month? What was it this time yesterday? Like why do we care about this particular number, right? And why does it matter to your operations guys? If you can close out those loops, you've then synthesized pretty much finance and operations together. You guys are now in sync completely.
Mm.
Hopefully there's some sort of music clip in there for you guys.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up, Ash, I think you had a good example a couple of episodes ago, but
Yeah.
I think when finance and operations are aligned, obviously we know that things speed up, things are better for the business. But usually that means aligned in terms of incentives, the bonus schemes, or the vision in the business has to be shared, so that we're saying it's, one business rather than here, finance, here's your goals, operations, here's your goals. And obviously there'll be singular goals for those teams, but it has to all align to a overall vision or align to an overall incentive. And I know you said that you've seen that work really well in other businesses you worked with.
No, exactly right. So yeah, we'd like had an example where it was like sort of a global profit share model where everyone would get a piece of that pie. So what they created was this amazing harmony for businesses and all the business units inside. It doesn't become an us versus them approach. It became, well, hey, like, we're working towards the same goal now. And it became very clear because you're like, hey, if you make more money and I can help you on that journey, I'm going to make some money as well. So why not?
Yeah.
Right. Whereas if you took that element away, it'd be like, oh, hey, I'm trying to make money. Like, I don't care. Like, I've got my month end to close, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's your responsibility. I'm going to stick in my lane. So if you can sort of join those dots and really create that environment where people are helping and not taking advantage of it, but actually genuinely helping, growing the company's value, preserving things as well, and asking the right questions like, hey, is this contract right for us? Have we considered X, Y, and Z? Amazing, right? It doesn't become just a one-sided conversation where we've already signed a contract that's really poorly commercially executed and bad for the business, yet somebody got a bottle of wine out of it, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes these things happen, but you just sort of try to eliminate those things or reduce those as much as possible. So there's no longer term damage as such.
Yeah. That's great. Anyway, Ash, you can take your operations hat off and put your accountant's hat back on, because we're about to wrap up the episode. Thanks for listening, guys. If you found value from it, subscribe, like, and follow our podcast. We're actually presenting at the Accounting and Business Expo in 6 to 8 weeks, I think it is, Ash. So we'll be touching on some of these topics there, some of these topics nearer and dearer to our hearts. If you've got anything that you'd like us to talk about as well, tap us up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.